Imagine spending 27 years of your life locked away in a concrete cell, breaking limestone rocks under the scorching African sun, only to emerge as the most powerful man in your country. This is not fiction. This is the extraordinary story of Nelson Mandela, a man who transformed from a so-called terrorist into the world's most beloved statesman. But behind the Nobel Peace Prize and the global admiration lies a story far more complex and controversial than most people realize. A story of devastating personal sacrifices, morally questionable decisions, and a price so high that it cost him his family, his health, and nearly his soul. What you are about to discover will challenge everything you thought you knew about one of history's most revered figures. Because the real Nelson Mandela was not just a saint. He was a man who made impossible choices in impossible times. And the methods he used to end apartheid were far more controversial than the world wants to remember. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was born on July 18, 1918, in the small village of Mvezo, in what would become South Africa. His father was a tribal chief, and young Nelson was destined for a life of traditional leadership. But destiny had other plans. In 1944, the young lawyer joined the African National Congress and quickly rose through the ranks. South Africa was implementing apartheid, a brutal system of racial segregation that treated the black majority as second-class citizens in their own land. Mandela initially believed in peaceful resistance, organizing boycotts and protests, but everything changed on March 21, 1960, in the township of Sharpeville. Police opened fire on peaceful protesters, killing 69 people and wounding 180. The massacre shattered Mandela's faith in nonviolence forever. What happened next would make him one of the world's most wanted men. Mandela founded Umkhonto we Sizwe, the military wing of the ANC, which translates to Spear of the Nation. He personally planned bombing campaigns targeting government buildings, power stations, and transportation networks. Here's what most people don't know. Until 2008, Nelson Mandela was officially classified as a terrorist by the United States government. He couldn't even enter the country without special permission. The man the world would later worship as a symbol of peace was once considered as dangerous as Osama bin Laden. But the most shocking revelation came decades later. In December 2013, the New York Times revealed that the CIA had provided crucial intelligence that led to Mandela's capture in 1962. The American government, supposedly champions of freedom, helped imprison the man who would become freedom's greatest symbol. On June 12, 1964, Nelson Mandela stood in a Pretoria courtroom and delivered words that would echo through history. "I am prepared to die." He was sentenced to life imprisonment for sabotage and conspiracy to overthrow the government. What followed were 27 years that would have broken most men. Mandela was shipped to Robben Island, a maximum security prison 7 miles off the coast of Cape Town. The conditions were deliberately designed to crush the human spirit. Picture this: a concrete cell measuring 8 feet by 7 feet, with only a straw mat on the floor. No bed, no chair, no table. Just 4 walls and a small window that showed nothing but the prison courtyard. For the first 8 years, Mandela was forced to take cold showers, even during the harsh Cape Town winters. Every day, prisoners were marched to the limestone quarry, where they spent 8 hours breaking rocks with picks and shovels. The white limestone dust damaged their eyes, and many prisoners, including Mandela, suffered permanent vision problems. The guards deliberately issued shorts instead of long pants, exposing their legs to the cold and the sharp limestone. But here's what made Mandela extraordinary. Instead of being broken by these conditions, he transformed Robben Island into what became known as Mandela University. He organized political discussions, taught illiterate prisoners to read, and maintained the morale of his fellow inmates. Gradually, through sheer force of personality and strategic thinking, Mandela negotiated better conditions, not just for himself, but for all political prisoners. He secured proper clothing, better food, and eventually even the right to study. By the late 1970s, he had a real bed and could wear long pants. The guards who were meant to brutalize him instead began to respect him. Some even sought his advice on personal matters. Mandela had done the impossible. He had retained his humanity and dignity in a place designed to destroy both. What do you think about what you've seen so far? Was Mandela's turn to violence justified after Sharpeville? Share your thoughts in the comments below. But prison was not Mandela's only punishment. The real cost of his fight for freedom was measured in the destruction of his personal relationships and the devastating impact on his family. Nelson Mandela was married 3 times, and each marriage tells a story of sacrifice and heartbreak. His first wife, Evelyn Mace, was a nurse he married in 1944. They had 4 children together, but the marriage couldn't survive Mandela's growing political activism. Here's a shocking detail that biographers have revealed. There were allegations that Mandela was physically abusive toward Evelyn. In the book, Young Mandela, author David James Smith suggests that Mandela may have struck his first wife and was unfaithful to her multiple times. Evelyn herself accused him of domestic violence during their divorce proceedings. Their son Thembi grew up resenting his father's absence. When Mandela was imprisoned, Thembi refused to visit him. The young man felt abandoned, choosing his mother's side in the bitter divorce. In 1969, Thembi died in a car accident. Mandela, locked away on Robben Island, was not allowed to attend his own son's funeral. The grief nearly destroyed him. His second marriage, to Winnie Madikizela in 1958, was even more tragic. They had only 5 years together before his imprisonment. Winnie raised their 2 daughters, Zenani and Zinzi, essentially as a single mother, while becoming a formidable political activist in her own right. But 27 years of separation destroyed their relationship. When Mandela was released in 1990, he discovered that Winnie had become involved with younger men and was accused of corruption and even murder. Their divorce in 1996 was painful and public. Mandela himself admitted the devastating truth. "I was not a good father or husband. I put my political duty before my family, and I paid a terrible price for it." His children struggled with addiction, financial problems, and the burden of their father's fame. Some never forgave him for choosing the struggle over his family. Thank you so much for staying with us this far into this incredible story. The best is yet to come, and what you are about to discover will completely change how you see Nelson Mandela forever. By the late 1980s, South Africa was collapsing under international pressure. Economic sanctions had crippled the country's economy. The apartheid government was spending 60% of its budget on defense and police. The white minority government realized they couldn't hold on to power forever. What most people don't know is that the negotiations to end apartheid began while Mandela was still in prison. In 1985, President P.W. Botha offered Mandela his freedom in exchange for renouncing violence. Mandela's response was defiant. "I cannot and will not give any undertaking while the people remain unfree." But secretly, Mandela had already begun a different kind of negotiation. He was moved to more comfortable prisons, first Pollsmoor and then Victor Verster, where he lived in a house with a swimming pool and a personal cook. These weren't rewards for good behavior. They were diplomatic gestures. From prison, Mandela held secret meetings with government officials, business leaders, and even apartheid cabinet ministers. He studied Afrikaans, the language of his oppressors, and learned about their history and culture. He understood that to defeat apartheid, he needed to understand the white minority's fears. The breakthrough came when F.W. de Klerk became president in 1989. De Klerk realized that apartheid was unsustainable and that Mandela was the only leader who could prevent a racial civil war. On February 11, 1990, after 27 years and 6 months in prison, Nelson Mandela walked free. The images of him raising his fist alongside Winnie became some of the most iconic photographs of the 20th century. But freedom was just the beginning of the most dangerous phase. South Africa was on the brink of civil war. Right-wing white groups were arming themselves. Black militant groups wanted revenge. Conservative black leaders like Mangosuthu Buthelezi were fighting the ANC for power. Between 1990 and 1994, more than 14,000 people died in political violence. Mandela had to navigate between extremists on all sides while keeping the peace process alive. On April 27, 1994, Nelson Mandela voted for the first time in his life. He was 75 years old. The African National Congress won 62% of the vote, and on May 10th, Mandela was inaugurated as South Africa's first black president. But here's where the story becomes even more remarkable and controversial. Instead of seeking revenge against his former oppressors, Mandela chose reconciliation. He kept the same national anthem that had been used during apartheid. He kept the same flag colors. He even kept white civil servants and military officers in their positions. Many of his own supporters were furious. They wanted justice, land redistribution, and reparations. Instead, Mandela created the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, led by Archbishop Desmond Tutu. The commission offered amnesty to those who confessed their crimes during apartheid. This decision was deeply controversial. Families of victims felt betrayed. Many white South Africans who had committed atrocities escaped punishment simply by telling the truth about their actions. Mandela's economic policies were equally controversial. Instead of radical redistribution, he maintained a market-friendly approach that some critics called apartheid capitalism. The white minority kept most of their wealth, while the black majority remained largely poor. Even his ex-wife Winnie criticized him harshly, saying, "He went to prison as a young revolutionary, and look how he came out." He disappointed the black people of South Africa profoundly by not redistributing the wealth. But Mandela believed he was saving the country from civil war. He understood that if he pushed too hard, too fast, the fragile democracy could collapse into chaos. His personal life found peace in his third marriage to Graça Machel, the widow of Mozambique's former president. At age 80, Mandela finally found the love and stability that had eluded him his entire life. When he left office in 1999, Mandela had achieved the impossible. He had transformed South Africa from a racist pariah state into a democracy without a civil war. But the price was enormous, and the compromises he made continue to shape South Africa today. Nelson Mandela died on December 5, 2013, at the age of 95. His death was mourned by millions around the world, from presidents to prisoners, from Nobel Prize winners to ordinary citizens who had never set foot in Africa. But as we've seen today, the real Nelson Mandela was far more complex than the saint-like figure portrayed in movies and textbooks. He was a man who made controversial choices, who used violence when he believed it was necessary, who sacrificed his family for his cause, and who chose pragmatic compromise over idealistic justice. The question we must ask ourselves is this: was Nelson Mandela a hero or a politician who made calculated choices? Did he save South Africa, or did he make compromises that allowed injustice to continue in a different form? The truth, as always, is complicated. Mandela was neither a saint nor a sinner. He was a human being who faced impossible choices in impossible times, and somehow found a way to change the world without destroying it. What do you think? Was Mandela's approach the right one? Or should he have pushed harder for true equality? Do you believe his compromises were necessary for peace, or did they betray the people who fought alongside him? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective matters, and this conversation is far from over. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. History is full of complex figures whose real stories are far more interesting than the myths we tell about them. And don't miss our next video, where we'll explore another leader who changed the world in ways you never imagined. The truth is always more compelling than the legend. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and never stop seeking the truth behind the stories that shape our world.